Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Lingam. Thank you for watching this video today. In this video, we will be focusing on learning how to deploy a .NET 6 web application in Linux. In some of the previous versions of .NET, we were only being able to deploy them in Linux with the help of Docker, which is nothing but containerization. It was good, it is good of course, but it involves more work and it's not the same as deploying directly in web server in Windows. So this video we will focus on deploying the .NET 6 app in Linux without the use of any Docker or containerization. Now there are two OS involved, Windows and Linux. We will use Windows to build the application. You can of course use Linux also to directly build it, but we will show that in another video. But in this video we will use Windows, where we will build our .NET 6 web app, a very basic simple one, and we will host that in Linux. So there are a couple of steps involved. First we will build the .NET app in Windows, then we will transfer the files to Linux. There are so many ways. You can use WinSCP, FileZilla, or you can even store them in a repository via Git and clone that repository in Linux, and you can there are more than one way to achieve the same feature. But the core concept is build in Linux, move the files to build in Windows and move the files to Linux. And once you receive the file in Linux, but before we begin with hosting it directly, in Linux there are a lot of steps involved. You need to first the Linux kernel or the Linux version that you are getting may not have all the dependencies involved or installed. So we will start with scratch. So we will first get some Linux kernel or Linux server, and then we will install Nginx or any other web server for your case. You can go with Apache or something else which suits your need, but here we will start with Nginx. Then we will install the .NET environment. This is very important because we are not going to use .NET Docker, which is for containerization. We will not use Docker, but instead we will go ahead with installing the environment directly. After these two are done, there will be a couple of minor tweaking steps involved, like opening the ports, handling the firewall, and giving permissions to the folders, and setting up the configurations in Nginx. And everything is done. Finally, we will start the service and we will test whether the app is accessible from Windows or not. This is the basic steps that we are going to follow, and let's go ahead. Here we go. I have opened Visual Studio 2022, and let me start with API. Sorry. Let me search for API. ASP.NET Core Web API is there, and ASP.NET Core Web Application. I think I will go with this, and let's give it a name. This is a very basic application, so let's start it as Linux tester, and I will not upload this in any repository, so I will just keep it outside because this is a very basic one. And we will use .NET 6 since this has a long-term support. And authentication, let it all be access. Let's not change anything here. You should note that I have enabled Open API support, which is nothing but I have enabled Swagger. So with Swagger, what happens is when you are building the application and trying to deploy in Linux, you will face some error with the swashbuckle DLL. I have intentionally added it I have intentionally let it be as is in the default setting, because in the default setting OpenAPI is there, and when you are trying to deploy in Linux you will face some architecture issues between 32-bit and 64-bit. I wanted to show that to you, that's why I am intentionally leaving it. And the idea behind this video is for you to understand all the steps involved and all the problems that you might face. So I'm not going to change some of the settings so that the errors will not happen. I will do as is, and whenever we face some errors I will just rectify them on the fly. This is our base setup. I'm not doing anything. We all know that this is the weather forecast, and when you run this web API, you will open up yes. This is basically giving me a certificate, SSL certificate, which is self-signed, and it will be opening in HTTPS. Though I know that this is self-signed HTTP SSL certificate, but the browser does not accept it because browser considers this as a security issue. That's why we are facing this. In your case, when you are doing it in production, if you have a SSL certificate, you can go ahead and use it. Here I will just accept the risk and continue. This is it. This is the Open API Swagger, and here I can directly test it. Let me test. So this localhost weather forecast works, and it is sending me the response. But this is not how you should be using it. Like, this is only when you are doing the development or you are sharing the Open API with others. But how it has been built, if I go here, it is if I go to the properties launch settings, it is launched in HTTPS 7292. That's what we are seeing here. 7292 HTTPS. You can change the settings as you need, and if it is in local without HTTPS, it will be in 5119, and under this my controller will be the controller here. My controller name, if you see here, it is coming from whatever the base location slash the route is controller name. So here without the controller, the name is weather forecast. That's what we have. So we can try directly also HTTPS or HTTP in that case, and localhost 5119, right? 5119 sorry 5119 followed by weather forecast. There we go. So this is you could see that when I gave 5119, it immediately changed to HTTPS. The reason is we have enabled HTTPS redirection. Let me show where it is. In your program, you will see there is HTTPS redirection, which means that whenever you call for HTTP, it will automatically redirect to the HTTPS. You can go ahead and comment it out. Now let's try what happens. Now we have commented it out. So in this case, HTTP localhost 5119 weather forecast will directly give me weather forecast in the HTTP without the SSL. The reason being, we commented out the automatic HTTPS redirection. So these are all very basics, and this video is not about understanding or learning ASP.NET API. This is only about hosting this in Linux. I will do one more thing. I will add one more new controller, and I will just say that whatever value you give, it will just return it back. Or maybe we can add a two function called arithmetic controller, and we can add a sum of two values. So I'm going to start with that, not an MVC. I'm going to go with an API empty, or maybe API with read write actions. Add, and let's give it a name, math controller. Okay, math controller. We have a controller inside Linux text controllers. Same namespace, right? Yeah, same namespace. And why do I need this? And it comes with math, and API controller is here. It's coming with API slash. I can even go ahead and remove it. So if I put API slash, what happens is, instead of directly calling the controller name after the base URL, I need to put this API. That is totally fine. And get instead of directly saying, I will say from query give me a value. That value should be in the form of a double, and let's call it as X. And again, from query give me a value. This value should be in the form of the name is Y. It is a double. So return X plus Y. Return X plus Y. And this one, I will give it a route as well. HTTP. I will give it it is a HTTP get, and let me give it a route. I don't know how you call this, root or route. I call it as route, and the route will be sum. So it's a HTTP GET and the root is sum, and it is expecting a string. So I will change it to double. That's it. So it's expecting a double, and it's not I enumerable of double. It's obviously a double directly, and let's make it as task of double, so that it can be awaited outside. And if I do something like this, then in that case I need to produce this as task dot result from result, so that it can be awaited outside. So this is fine. So basically we have a task which will get x and y and do this. Let me remove everything else. Let us keep it very simple, or maybe we can add one more multiplication, and this we call it as multiply, and this is also a get, not a post method. And let's change the name multiply. Let's give it a name sum. It could be any name. It doesn't have to be the route name. It could be any name you want. It doesn't have to be same as this. You give x and y, and result will be x into y. Fine. Now let us test it. It is at API slash. You should remember that. You can test in Swagger directly, but for the sake of simplicity, I will do it here. I have something called API sum, and then I have x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 9. So 5 9s are 45, so I should get, sorry, 5 plus 9 is 10. I should get 10, but I'm not receiving anything here. Let us try here in directly in sum. Let's try what is the value. 4 and 5 should give me 9, but I didn't receive anything there. I know the reason. I roughly have an idea what could be the reason. Let's try F12, the network. 404 doesn't exist. Why it doesn't exist? 404 not found. It's obviously okay. We are calling the endpoint directly. Before the endpoint, we have the controller name, which is some math. Math is the controller name, right? That's fine. So instead of sum, if I put multiply, I get 45. 5 9s are 45. 5 plus 9 is 14, right? So sum is 14. That's fine. So our API works, and this is what we need. It's very simple and a small one. That's it. Our API is fine. Now let me minimize it. Close this one. Let's keep our API available now. And there are a couple of things that we need to do here, but you don't have to worry about all those things, because those things you can directly find in the documentation of Microsoft. This I always repeat in some of my videos before. Whatever we do, these kind of web applications or Linux OS environment, these are all evolving on a daily basis. Whatever we learn today might not be applicable tomorrow. So it's always better to look into the documentation. If you face any error, go to the log. If you have any doubt, go to the documentation, instead of trying to figure it out yourself, which obviously is a good thing. But if you go to the documentation, you can save hours and hours of time. So that even though I know for sure what I'm doing, I always go to the documentation to ensure that nothing has been changed and everything as is. The core idea or takeaway from any video like this or tutorial like this should be the steps involved and how we are solving it, not the exact code or method that we are using, but how we are achieving something should be the key takeaway. So that said, I will close this one as of now, and we will directly go ahead and set up Linux. So there we go. We can do a lot of things. You can have your Linux in cloud. You can have your Linux in your internal servers. But for this video, end of the day, the concept is all going to be the same. This video, I will use Fedora Linux project. All you need to do is you need to download the latest version. Some of the steps might be different if you are favoring Ubuntu, or if you are going with Red Hat Linux or CentOS. it's all going to be the same, but I find the Fedora to be more easy. It's not easy. I find Fedora to be more comfortable for me, and this is what I have been using for a long time. And we don't need desktop. That's an overkill for this. All we need is a server, a headless server. We will not see anything graphically except for the terminal, of course. Download this one. This will be somewhere around for your ISO. You need an ISO. Download an ISO, because I'm going to go with VirtualBox. In case you are going with any servers like cloud servers directly, I prefer using Vultr and DigitalOcean both. You can find them here. Where am I? If we go to the cloud compute and go down somewhere, this is very cheap as well. It comes at $5 per month. And for my personal website, I have been using DigitalOcean and Vultr both. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct. I'm calling it as Vultr. And this one comes at $5. I host 4 of my websites here. All 4 are client rendered, so it's basically only sends the application to the browser, and everything is taken care from the browser end. So all this memory, bandwidth, storage, everything is an overkill for 4 applications. So this is what I'm using, and I'm not getting paid anything by Vultr for promoting their application. I'm just sharing it here. And in the OS library, I always go with Fedora, while you also have Arch, Debian, CentOS, and many more are there. So if you want, you can go ahead with purchasing Fedora and directly try, or CentOS and directly try it. But in this video, we will go with downloading an ISO, the latest server 38, and we will set it up in VirtualBox. Oracle VirtualBox. For the uninitiated, VirtualBox is nothing but a containerization or virtualization, right? Virtualization. Now, what happens is within your OS, you can install this free open source, I believe. I'm not sure if it is open source, but of course it is freeware. Set up this VirtualBox, and then within your Windows, you can still run Linux or Mac OS or whichever you want. I have removed all my previous installations just to give you a better understanding from scratch. I removed all my previous versions, so it's very clean. I have downloaded its VirtualBox directly, and I have downloaded this. I have set up a different drive. I usually have a different drive here, which is my virtual machines, and this also have cleared, and everything is fine here. And then I have downloaded the OS. Let me directly, I will show the OS once we are setting it up. So I downloaded this Fedora 38. I have downloaded and installed the VirtualBox, and everything is a clean slate. Let's start with setting up a new machine, and folder. I will give the location that I have set up. The location is here in the VirtualBox. Some location, it's up to you. And the type of OS, let me first give it a name, and let's call it as Fedora or whatever you want, Fed 38. It's up to you to name whatever you want. And it is saying that it is Fedora 64-bit. Obviously, the moment I gave the name, it took it by itself. But you don't have to worry about it, because once you choose this ISO, right, I have this Fedora server, I have Mac and other things also. Let me select the Fedora server, and everything else, we cannot fill these values now because everything is taken from the ISO image. And base memory, I have 32 GB RAM. I will assign at least 8, somewhere around this 8 GB RAM, and I will assign I have 12 CPUs. I will assign at least 6. Virtual disk 15 GB is more than enough, and in case you want to add more disk space, you can always use LVM to manage your Linux at a later point of time. That's it. So these are the base settings. Before we start, we need to adjust the graphics as well. So graphics, I will give full 128 MB, and network, I will go here. This is very important. Usually the Linux, this is VirtualBox, that's why we have this setup. But if you are going for cloud like Vultr or DigitalOcean or Azure or whatever it is, it will already have the internet connection. But when you are doing it in a VirtualBox within your PC, you need to give bridged adapter. And my laptop is using Wi-Fi, and that's why the default active one is chosen now. I have multiple ones, but the default one, which is whichever is actually connected to the internet, will be selected. And most important, here allow all connections, and the cable connected should be active. If it is not active, the internet might not work. So 3 things: bridged network, choose the current active wireless adapter, and allow all, and cable connected. That's it. Now when we start this, it should install Fedora 38 from the ISO into the location that we have provided. The location that we have provided is, wait, let me open up the location. This is the virtual machine that we have created, the Fed38. So now here the VDI and the VBOX will be created by here. If you see, let me capture install Fedora. Install Fedora in the machine that we have created. Let me maximize. First instance, it will take a little bit time because we are going to install it for the first time. After the installation is completed, then we need to start setting up the Nginx and other things. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just skip directly after the installation is complete. Installation is very straightforward. We don't have to manage or control anything. It will take some time, maybe 10-12 minutes, and it will be done. Let's wait. There we go. It's asking me the setup status. So let me choose English, and let it be whatever you want. I will go with English, United States. And here, let me remove this. Continue. Only this screen will be in the form of a GUI, and after everything else is done, you will not have anything in the GUI. Everything is going to be, since this is a server, everything will be in the form of a terminal. First thing, we already have set up the 15 GB hard disk, so we need to select it. Remember, if you don't select it, it is empty. So just select the hard disk. Then we are not adding any more disk now. These things we don't need at present, and then done. So here disk is done. Then root account and user should be there. Let me create a dummy user. I will just use Lingam without the password, and no administrative privileges. Done. And I will add the root, and it's very important for you to remember the root password. And there is a root account, and I'm going to give you a password. It should be a secure password, but what I will do, mouse at 123. This is just I'm just using it for the reference purpose, but you should not be using the same. Of course, you should know that. Allow SSH, and done. Press done again to use the password. It was saying the password is very weak, and I know already the password is weak. That's fine. Installation is still going on. Actually, it took more than 15 minutes to completely set it up. Now that it is complete, I'm rebooting the system. Okay, there we go. It says that, okay. When installing an OS for the first time, this 15 minutes is totally fine. But if you are spinning up a new instance from any cloud service provider, it should not take this much time. It should be instant. And since we are doing it from scratch in VirtualBox, it was taking this much time. There we go. Now you could see that there is an IP address 192.168.0.120. Let me open up the command prompt and check if I'm able to ping this server. First, let us identify what is our server, like the host. This command prompt is from the host Windows machine, IP config. My host address is 192.168.0.150. Okay, and the VirtualBox address is 192.168.120. Let me try to ping 192.168.0.120. There we go. So from our host machine, Windows machine, we are able to ping the VirtualBox. Here let me log in using, there are two users if you remember. One is root with the password mouset123 and another user is Lingam without any password. So now I am connecting with Lingam without any password and I am already connected. Lingam at localhost, so it doesn't carry any password. Now from here let me try to ping 192.168.0.150. So both are working fine. Let's confirm. I believe that the ping didn't work yet. The other way is working fine. Let me open up my command prompt now. 192.168.0.150, 192.168.0.150, which is not working yet. Let me press Control and C in the VirtualBox so that we will exit from the command. Control C. You could see that it is 100% loss, which means we are not able to reach the server from the outside. Okay, that is fine. Let me shut down the power of the machine. So now we have installed Fedora and we don't have anything else now. There are two ways how you can now connect. You have a machine, you can spin up the machine. I'm sorry, I closed it. Before you start the machine, you can set up all the appearances. If you need some settings that you want to change, you can do all those settings directly here. Anyhow, the network is already set up. If you want a shared folder, all those things you can set up here. In the user interface also, you can set up whichever you need. That is fine. So let me discuss the changes. Start the machine. And there is one more thing. Let me show this for you. Putty. And this is also a free SSH provider for Windows. What it could do for you is whenever you are setting up Oracle VirtualBox or even from cloud Linux solutions, you will not be having full flexibility. Like you need to either use the terminal that they have provided. In case of Vultr, you will be logging into their system, the website, and from there you will be connecting to the Linux server. But with regards to Putty, all you need is you need a machine that should be running somewhere, which in our case, the Linux is going to run in Oracle VirtualBox. And once we know that the machine is running, we don't even need to use the VirtualBox anymore. We can directly go ahead with the Putty to connect to the system, and from there we have more options like we can change the font, we can change the size of the terminal. It's very easy to handle there. Even we can go with the full screen. Everything is possible there. So now I already have Putty installed. Let me open up the Putty. Okay, there we go. I'm keeping it ready, and let the VirtualBox Fedora open up first. Then we will look into the IP address and connect it. I know for a fact that the IP address is already there, 192.168.0.120, and port is 22 because it is a port that we use for SSH. And let me try to save this. Load or save. What should be the name? Save. Now there is something else missing. Let me close and 192.168.0.22 save. I believe it is saved in default settings. Whatever. Let me try to open. Yes. So now here in putty it is asking me to log in as it's the same screen as that, but what I have is I can press a right click. You do not press a right click directly in the putty, but you press your control and press right click, and here in the change settings I will go to the appearance and I will change my font to 14. So it will look much bigger and easy to follow. Now this virtual VBOX we will not close, because if we close, which means it will ask us whether you need to shut down the machine or not. So the machine is running, minimize it, and we will follow up everything in the putty screen itself. It will be very easy for us. Now login using root command. Password is mouse at 123, and there we go. We have now logged in. And from here let us try to ping 192.168.0.150. If it doesn't work, no problem, we can come back later and try to find the issue. It's not working. Let me press Ctrl C and come out of the command. Let us press ls list and go one folder back. So this is my root folder. Now if you would have remembered, there is one more thing. Like this putty is for accessing the Linux via the terminal, via a terminal. There is one more thing called WinSCP, which is to access Linux through a user interface. Like with the user interface, it's basically kind of like an explorer. I have already installed this. I'm using it for a long time. Let me open and show. These are all different ways of accessing a Linux solution. So let me say 192.168.0.120 and username is root, password is mouse at 123, login, yes, certificate, I am setting it. You could see this is my, the left hand side is my local PC, right hand side is my Linux. So you could see this is same as this one. This AFS, bin, boot, Dave, etc. These are all the same. You can easily, if you are used to, you can directly do this. But I will not suggest using WinSCP unless you are copying the files from your Windows to your Linux. Let us minimize it. Let it be there for some time. Now, first step, you should know a couple of basic commands, which is not relevant to this video, but I will just show some of the commands. Uname list, uname all. This is my Linux and it is in localhost, local domain, and some of the basic information is there. And if I want to know which user I am logged in under, I can type W, which will give me full information. I am user root. I am logged in using this something, and time is here, and all the information is available. And this is very basic. And let me clear the screen. Okay, that's it. And the next step is, as we have already discussed, we need to install Nginx. If you are using Ubuntu or different, if you are using Fedora, CentOS or Red Hat, you will be using the command called yum. If you are using Ubuntu, you will use the command called apt-get. But in Fedora, the command is called dnf. So other than that, all the other process is same. So let's first let us see all the installed applications. Sudo dnf. In case of Ubuntu, you will follow sudo apt-get, or in case of Red Hat and CentOS, you will do sudo yum. List all installed. So it will show me all the installed applications in this one. So there are so many applications installed. Like these applications, or you could call it as repositories or dependencies. Sorry, not repositories, dependencies. So we have packet manager, we have core utils. I also saw something like Python by default is already installed here, and almost everything is there. Vim is there, but we don't have Nginx is not there. Like web server Nginx or Apache is not there, and .net obviously is not there. We need to install them both. First and foremost thing, you need to know the exact command how you can install. In case you don't know, do a search. Sudo dnf search Nginx. What it will do, it will search the default repository and then it will try to install Nginx. And let me press enter. Okay, so there is one more thing that I forgot to mention. Whenever you are trying to reach the repository, right, this is the first time I'm trying to do DNF and reach the repository. Whenever I try to do or reach the repository, it will download all the OS related upgrades and patches first. Only if the OS related upgrade and patches are installed, it will start implementing the other commands or start executing the other commands. So it looks like the Fedora 38 OS that I downloaded and I kept in my local, which was maybe a couple of months back, is far behind from the latest one in the repository. That's why there is 83 MB of update which is pending and it is trying to install that one. You can also manually install it first so that you don't face this issue. I will quickly show how it could be done. Let's wait for 2 minutes. It's happening. Actually, what happened is after it searched over everything, it went ahead and installed. It didn't install because we were only searching for Nginx. Only after all the patches updates, it managed to give us only the results. You could see exact matches this one, Nginx, and it has other partial matches here. We need to focus only on exact, because I know that this is the web server I need. Okay, before that, sudo dnf check updates. It will give me all the updates. What did it say? There is no command as updates. Okay, sudo dnf check update. Not updates, it's update. I could see that there are a lot of updates available. Let us first install these updates. Sudo dnf update. So there is 421 MB of update which is available. It's always a best practice when you are spinning up a new virtual machine or a new Linux. It's better to start with all updated one. So I give yes, and let's wait for a few more minutes to get it installed. Usually such cases happens when you install a ISO, Linux ISO, which you have downloaded long time back. The Fedora 38 release, maybe the one that I got it was a very old one. Now there could be a 38 latest release as well. That's why we have this 400 MB difference. Let me give why. So let's install. It will take some time, so let's just wait until everything is completed and we are returned back to the terminal. I want you to take a look at something here. Just pay attention. There is something called C Linux policy, and C Linux means I believe it is security enhanced. C Linux. Security enhanced Linux. It's important because of this C Linux policy, we will face a lot of tight security issues on it. You cannot call it as issue because we will have a lot of things which are disabled and your applications will not be able to connect outside. There will be some workarounds. We need to enable some permissions in the cmanage. We will come back to that shortly. We're almost there. Everything is done. At this point, it looks like the system is not responding, but it's not like that. It's still doing some installation in the backend. So let us wait until we are returned back to the terminal. Okay, there we go. It says completed. It took so much time, and depending upon your PC speed and the Linux environment machine capacity, the time might differ. Anyhow, there we go. Let me clear the screen. Clear, and I will again do sudo dnf check updates. Sorry, it's not updates, it's update. It should tell me there is no update. So that's it, there is no update, everything is fine. And now we already have Nginx installed, right? We need to let us confirm that dnf list installed. You can directly check everything. If you are not happy with this, you can, in this case, if you have 400 or 500, you need to go through this and find where is my Nginx. No, we did not install Nginx. You know what we did? We searched for Nginx. We never installed it. So sudo dnf install Nginx. So this is 2 MB. Yes, let it install. It's quite fast. Complete. Now let me clear. You don't have to clear, but the reason why I'm clearing is I want to keep the screen clean so that you understand what's happening. Now let us check sudo dnf list installed. This time I will do a grep. Grep means it will search for a specific pattern. Search only Nginx star. So it says that, like, you can go ahead with sudo dnf list install, but what it will do, it will list everything. But if I give a grep, it will show me all the installed, and after the result do a filter of Nginx. So that's what I'm doing here. So I have Nginx installed, and some of the dependencies along with the Nginx also got installed. That is totally fine for us. So now that we know that Nginx is installed, the next step is we need to run this Nginx, right? So how do we run the Nginx? Before we run the Nginx, I need to show you all the current services that are running. There is a command called system control and service status. Okay, this is wrong. So I think it is system control. If I press enter, it will give me different values. So quit, clear, system control ctl, show me the type is equal to service. It should give me all the services which are loaded, active and running. You could see that these are all the active services. I have like something called crony, blah blah blah, firewall is running and network is running, but nowhere I see my Nginx running, because we have installed Nginx, but we don't know Nginx is running or not. Let me do one thing. Nginx status. Nginx doesn't have status, so Nginx version. There is one more thing now, which is called manual. So MAN. For any command, if you put MAN before, it will give you all the options available. So man Nginx. So Nginx is proxy server and blah 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 blah. So you can do Nginx. There are a lot of things you can start, quit, reopen. Something is there. And I know that Nginx is there, but I don't know the status. It is still system control, but system control, it's not service Nginx, it is status of Nginx. Okay, you see, there is a service called Nginx, but it is disabled and it is not loaded. There is no running now. If I do the same for system control status of firewall, firewall MD or firewall command? Firewall MD, I believe. Okay, you know what? Let's do system control. Type is equal to service. What is this called? Firewall D. That service. Okay, so system control status firewall D. So firewall D is enabled, and it is something called enabled and running and active. So this is what we need. To do the system control, we have installed Nginx, enable Nginx. So it is now creating a symbolic link. This is symbolic link. This is something like it will create a file with the configuration information, and actually the file is placed in this location. inside systemd system blah 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 blah, but actually the file is present in a different location, but that's okay, we don't need to worry about that. Now let us check system control status of Nginx. It is enabled but it is not running. So what we need to do, system control start Nginx. Let me clear the screen. System control status of Nginx. Now Nginx is not only enabled, it is also running. So you need to use system control enable Nginx and start Nginx. Okay, now Nginx is running. Where it is running, which is the port it is actually running. So you need to see all the ports which are open and running. So you have something called netstat. Oh, okay, this is bigger. Clear the screen. Netstat hyphen, you need to give all the commands. Show me all, A for all, L for listening. A will give you all the ports, L will give you listening ports. Let's start with listening ports. Show me the TCP, show me the UDP, and show me the N. I believe N is the number of the port and P is the processor. It could be any way, it doesn't have to be LTUNP. It can be hyphen PTNLU also is fine, because at the end of the day the command is very simple. Netstat, show me the network statistics of all the listening commands, or I will start with like show me the program should be there, number should be there, TCP UDP value should be there, and everything should be listening. L is for listening, A is for all. So now, oh my goodness, Control C, and let me give this. So you could see that here Nginx is running and it is listening at 80 port. So Nginx is running at 80 port in TCP, and Nginx is running and listening at TCP 6. So Nginx is running and it is also listening at port 80. Now, which means that we should be able to reach Nginx through this 80, right? Let me open up. Here we know that it is 192.168.0.120 and it is running at 80. What's happening? It's not working. Let us go to command and try to bring 192.168.0.120. We are able to reach the server, but are we able to reach the specific port? Use PowerShell. PowerShell. This is the old one. You need to always go for the latest PowerShell. Latest PowerShell 7 will have a lot of new features, but here I think the command is test net connection. I am typing test and pressing this what do you call tab key, test net connection. Location is 192.168.0.120 and port is 80. I am trying to reach this 192.168.20 at a port 80. It should, if it is open, it should be true, like it should return connection success, or it will return false. Let's wait and see. Because from command prompt I can directly ping and see only the IP address. Specific port I will not be able to ping. For that I use PowerShell test net connection. We are still waiting for echo reply. It should not take this much time. You could see that it is false. It didn't connect. So ping is succeeded, but test is not succeeded. That's why TCP connection and the port is not open. So we know that there is a problem with the port, and that's where firewall comes in now. You need to use firewall to open the port. Let me open up, where is our PowerShell now? PowerShell, yeah, this one. Okay, let's clear the screen. Firewall command, first list ports. Now, you see, firewall command has a couple of features, like let's manual firewall command. Firewall command, you can have help is hutch, right? So let us do a help. Firewall command help. You see, there are a lot of features here. To lock down something, it is here. To directly get all chains, blah blah blah. what we need is, we need to add you see, there is something called list services, which will show all the services which are added to the firewall. If you want to add a service, you will add a service like this. If you want to remove service, list ports, add ports. This is what we need. We need to check all ports and we need to add a port. Very simple. So let me clear. Like I said, any command that you have a problem with in Linux, either you can go online and search somewhere, or you can always do man and type the command. So in this case, all you need to know is the command, and this command tells me that there are more information is available at help. That's why I will do firewall command help, and it gives me all the information. So firewall command list. You know what happened here? After I typed list, I forgot the command, so I pressed the tab and it gave me the information. So list, where is the ports? So no port is added to firewall. So again, firewall command list services. So there are currently SSH is added to firewall, and that's the reason why we are able to reach the client using the local host, like using the putty. Putty is connected to our Linux machine using SSH. That's why it is enabled here. Let me clear again. So firewall command add port is equal to, I need 8 TCP. So open the port 80 through TCP and add it to the firewall. Now let's say firewall command list ports. It should tell me that 80 TCP is open via the firewall. Now it is very clear. Go back here. Now we can do two things. We can directly open it up here and run the previous command. Now it should be success, or you can run this here. So Fedora web server test page, this is coming from Nginx, and I'm able to reach the location through 80 port, and even here the TCP is the test net connection is success. So which means we have opened the port. Let me go back here. Now that we know the port is opened at 80, the next step is to check netstat list TCP, UDP, number and programs. You see, Nginx is here listening at 80, and Nginx is here listening at 80, which is already there. So we know that Nginx is listening at 80, but it was earlier not opened. The port 80 is not open. Now the port 80 is opened. So this is all about setting up Nginx, and we know that Nginx is now working. So this is totally fine. Our next step is very simple. We need to first install .NET. The same process. And how do we do this process? Sudo dnf search, because we are searching the repository for something called .NET, and there is something direct exact matches .NET 86, but this is not something that we need. What we need is .NET 6 SDK, this one. You know why? Because this is the software development kit for .NET 6. You can also install .NET 7. It is totally up to you. But in this example video, we are doing .NET 6. Let me do sudo dnf install .NET SDK 6.0. So this should bring, what happened? There is nothing, skd, it should be SDK, right? SDK, okay. This should bring in and install all the other dependencies. So SDK is based on runtime, targeting pack, blah 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 blah. Yes. Let's wait until it gets installed. At this point, we have .NET installed and Nginx installed. Let us check the .NET version. I think .NET doesn't have version, it has info. Okay, so nope. .NET version. Nope, doesn't work. So manual .NET. You need to find something from .NET. You have .NET H help and .NET _ version. So .NET has version, right? So .NET version is 6.0. So we have .NET installed. we have Nginx installed. Both are installed. So the next step is we need to bring the application that we built. So this one we need to bring it into Linux. What we do, let us go ahead, and there are a couple of steps that needs to be done within here itself to build it. So let's check .NET 6 in Linux. It should open up Microsoft. It will give a couple of steps that needs to be done. This is from Microsoft. No, not this one. Run .NET in Linux. You must have. Okay, this one, install .NET in Linux distribution, same. So here we go for Fedora or whichever we want, and we go for .NET 6. So this one is done, this one is all done, dependencies all done. This is basically only telling me how to install. Okay, you know what, I will just stop here. Let's go ahead and first build it, then we will see all the issues that comes later. Publish, and before publish I would like to show something. This will be any CPU here. You could see that configuration is any CPU and it is not 64. So when you build it, you will notice something, that add a publish profile to a folder. Next, okay, close. So now you could go ahead and say this is framework dependent, which means wherever you are going to publish it, it should contain .NET 6 framework. That's what it means, framework dependent. If you give self-contained, the file count will be more, maybe like 300, 400 files, but it will carry all the DLL files that are required to run this application. But we know that .NET 6 is installed in Linux, so let us keep it simple, framework dependent. And this is not Windows, this is Linux. And did you notice something? When you are trying to build to Linux, it's only accepting 64, ARM 64 or 64. It is not saying anything about 86. So we know that this can only be built for 64. So go to any CPU 64. You need to change this. But what will happen if you don't change it? You need to change it, but let us assume that you don't change it and you make it Linux 64 framework dependent, release version, and nothing else. Produce these are all fine. Save, publish. Let it publish. Meanwhile, we'll open up our WinSCP, and we need to go to the location here, open folder, and then parallelly in Linux we need to make a directory. Where do we want to make a directory? Let's make the directory somewhere. Let me clear the screen. Let's make the directory in home, or no, not home, maybe here in this media or where or wherever we want. Usually we all know that if you are from Linux, you know that it is placed in var www. So let's make it cd var. It doesn't have www, so let me make a directory called www, and inside this directory, let me go inside this directory. I don't have anything. Let me make one more directory and call it as ltest or linux test. So we will paste or copy our application into this location. Go to here, publish succeeded. Go to WinSCP, and before that here open the directory. We already have the open folder here, right? So open folder, copy the location, go to WinSCP, and here where will I paste my location? Here, open directory. So these are the files which needs to go into where it's not refreshed. You see, let's synchronize www linux text, and all these files should go inside here. I don't know, I will just copy and paste inside. So upload 11 files to this remote directory. Okay, all files uploaded. Good. Now let me cd linux test ls. I got all my files whichever I created there came inside. Here the command is very simple. Now we are inside Linux, .net, and give the DLL file. .net DLL file should run this application. If there are any errors, it will say, wow, there is no error, which is surprising because I'm 100% sure in one of my previous tests in cloud server I faced with an error. So let me give exit and let me log in again from the putty. But remember, in case you face an error, you need to fix the error like I said. And here control and right click, change settings, appearance, Fira code 14. Okay, this is only so that the screen is very nice for you to look. Mouse at 1 2 3. Okay, like we were looking into it, in case you find any errors, you can always go online, search for the errors. Mostly if it is related to bad system format, which is mainly because of the any CPU issue, you can fix that issue. But now we don't have any issue, but we will do one more thing. We will go into this var www.linux test and let me run this .NET Linux test. So now the application is running, that is for sure, but it is running in this bash. Until I come out, it will not leave. So while it is running here, let me open up my Fedora command here. Here I will log in using Lingam. I can also log in using anything I want, any user, even in the root user, but we have only 2 users at present. You see, this both are 2 terminals. One terminal from putty accessing my Linux virtual machine. Another is from VBOX itself, a terminal accessing the virtual machine. Both are accessing. Now from here, I will try to ping. You can ping, you can do curl or wget or different ways of reaching an web API. Wget will download the file while curl will ping the file. So I'm going to ping http localhost. You see here it is running in localhost 5000. http localhost 5000, and I know that it is weather forecast. So we got the result, which means when this .NET is running this DLL, we are able to reach there. Let me do Control C and shut down. Now if I try to do the same, it should say that failed to connect because the port is closed. Now let us run this .NET here so that we can easily see that in putty, because putty is much, the screen appearance is good. cd var www linux test and .NET linux.dll. Okay, now we also created one more curl http localhost 5001. Where is my 5000? Why am I 5000 API math, and after math sum x is equal to 5 and y equals 3. 5 3s are 5 plus 3 8. But what it gave me 12521, which is not correct, right? If I give x is 5, y is 5, my value is 10. Okay, the curl command should be like this. I need to give get, not http get. Okay, let's try that. And we know that this is 5000, and let me remove the https. It's giving me the correct value. But the problem here is when you are running .NET directly, like what we are doing here, when the current user is logged out, or due to timeout it is logged out, or any other reason it could be, then the application will not work. We need to do a lot of configurations, which might look a little bit difficult, but it's very easy if we focus and understand what we are doing. When we go to the home, and let us first take a look at the existing configuration, which is inside etc. And inside etc we have Nginx. Do you see Nginx anywhere? Yeah, Nginx is here. Let me go inside the Nginx folder, and we need to open Nginx.conf. So cat will basically show you the contents of this. Vim will allow you to edit it. So cat Nginx.conf. So this is my settings for everything, and I could see that if it is HTTP and the access log is here, like all the access will be here. So whenever there is an error, we can always go ahead and see what are the errors that are here or access that are here. And you see there is an include, and server is listening at 80, and the root is here, blah 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 blah, and all those things are there. Now what we need to do, we need to include other configurations as well. We need to include other configurations for our application that we are about to prepare. So to do that, inside this Nginx, let us create two folders. If you are using Ubuntu, or if you are using some other OS, there is a high possibility you already have this. In case you don't have, you need two directories. Make directory sites available and sites enabled. I'm creating two folders called sites enabled and sites available. What does it say? All the sites, whether it is with a front end like a HTML page, or whether it is a .NET web API like ours, whatever it is, we will put them in available. And enabled is, we might have 10 sites available, but only 2 or 3 enabled. That's what it means. So to ensure that enabled and available are working, it's very simple. We create a symbolic link. Symbolic link in terms of Windows users, it is nothing but a shortcut. You will have like 10 configuration files inside available, and you will create a instead of putting all 10 inside sites enabled, you will create a link, a shortcut for only the ones that you want to be actually available in enabled in Nginx. That's what this enable do. So in a nutshell, enabled will carry only the shortcut keys or symbolic links to the actual files present in sites available. Maybe you have 10 in sites available, only 2 shortcut links in enabled. So because of this reason, only those 2 will be running in the Nginx server. So this is the base idea that we are going to do. I am running this in the VirtualBox. I am running our .NET application, but the problem with running them directly is that it might not be accessible from outside. Right? There are multiple ways. It is running at 5000, and if I try to reach that 5000 here, it might not be accessible because the port is not open, of course, so it will not be working. But again, regardless of whether the port is working or not, if I sign out from this user, then again this application will be shut down. So that's why we cannot use run the .NET like this, because when the user is logged out, then the application will also be closed. So what we need is a way to run this application even if the user is not logged in. So there are 2 ways. One, you run them directly inside a web server like Nginx, or you run it in a service. Service and Nginx web server, these are all background services which will not require an user to be logged in. Once the machine is turned on, these services will automatically be running. So that's what we need. We need to run them in a service. So first what I will do, I will run our application in a service, and it will be running at 5000 or 5001, whatever it is. and from the Nginx later we will do a reverse proxy, and whenever we receive the request we redirect it to this application. So that's what we are going to do. First let us see how to do this in a background service. To do this, let me open up here. Let's clear the screen. First and foremost thing that we need to do is where the services are present. You could go to the home or the root. You could see that in etc. cd etc. Here we will have system D. Where is the system D? System D. Let me open system D, and these are all the different service files. Now these are not the system files. Let's go inside. These are all configuration system. Okay, these are all the different service files. Currently there are like bus service, default service, blah 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 blah. Different services are there. First let us take a look at one of the service, dbus.service, and see what is present. You see, when I open reading the dbus.service using the cat command, it contains a description, documentation, blah 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 blah. These are all like basic information. And service itself is what is the type of service, and does it require any socket, and what we should do in case of how we should execute it. A service, in our case what we will do, we will use the .net to execute the service. So we will create a file like this first. So there are multiple ways how you can create a file. You can create a file using sudo nano, but what I will do first, I will touch will basically create a file, and let's call this file as lnx-test.service. So you could see that lnx-test.service file is generated. And let's create this vim. Vim is for editing. Let me edit the file. It's an empty file now. I made a mistake. So let me press colon Q for quit. So, apostrophe, what is this? Apostrophe or exclamatory mark is for quit without saving. You see here, we need to first copy the units, this setup. Before we copy the setup, there is one more thing that we need. For whenever it is executing, right, it is executing using something called dbus broker. We need to understand where our .net is present. It's usually present in user bin. Let us reconfirm once. cd /cd user bin list. Do we have .net command here? Okay, let us do grep, or like we don't even need grep. We can directly say list everything that starts with dot. There is something called .net. So .net is present in user bin now. So now that we know this, we can again go into cd etc. systemd system, and here we will edit our linux test.service, and I again made a mistake because I did not copy the ones. Quit, do not save, and let us clear the screen. And the previous command was vim cat dbus service. Copy this information. Good lord. I didn't do anything. I just selected it from here till here. I selected it. I'm not doing anything, and I believe let us do the vim command, and let me do insert, right click. You know what, it is not working. Okay, quit, escape, quit, and let me copy. What I did, I used control and press right click. Obviously that's the only way it works here. Insert, right click, and there we go. And let me change the description. Description is instead of dbus system bus, let's call it as test service for Linux. and I don't need anything else. I believe I will delete them all. I don't need anything else. Maybe dd. No. Okay. So dd basically deletes. You see right side here. I'm giving the command dd, deletes a line. So we are not in insert mode, I believe. Let's come out of insert mode, replace mode. I come out of the insert mode and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines to be deleted. So 5, you see the command here, 5 dd. So it deletes the 5 lines from the cursor. Okay, fine. Now I'm going to press insert and let me go above, and in the description, test service for Linux. Next, and type of services, we don't need the type as well. Let me escape. Let me escape here and dd. Okay, this is also I don't need. What I need is only the working directory, and then what I need is restart mode, which should be always. Restart is always. And directory, we know that the working directory is www, and inside which ln test, right? Let me open this. Location is lnx tester. So this is my working directory, restart always, and execute it with not with launch mode, but with in the user bin.net, and execute. What are we executing? We need to give the full file regardless of where it is. lnx test, execute the file called, let me reconfirm again, execute the file called linux test. You see here linux test.dll. okay, execute the file called linux test.dll whenever it is starting. Okay, perfect. So this is what we need. This is bare minimum. Let me press escape, colon, wq, w for write, q for quit. Now let me clear and cat linux service test. Description is there, working directory is there, restart is there, execute start is there. We need one more thing here I forgot to do. Sometimes, you know, when Linux itself is crashed, right? Then Linux, .NET itself is crashed, right? Then .NET itself will take some time. So restart sec equals 10. So why I'm doing this is, whenever the application is restarting, maybe the .NET itself might take like 2 or 3 seconds to restart. That's why our application, this .NET, this execution should start only after the .NET service is started. So to ensure that we are giving 10-second buffer, that's what it is. Okay, cat lnx test.service. Now this is all perfect. Now that we created the file, and we need to enable this service, and we need to run this service, same like Nginx. When the file nginx text is present inside the system, system control will consider it as a service. So we can directly ask what is the service status. It is loaded, but it is not running. The status is inactive, dead. So we know that. So system control, enable this service first, and file has no installation config wanted by, required by, also by. Okay, so you need these things to be written, at least wanted by should be there. So let us edit our file, vim lnx test.service. Wanted by is nothing but install command. So let me do insert and install. The error was wanted by is not present. Wanted by, and multi-user dot target. So this is a default like a predefined value. I'm saying that it is wanted by multiple users across this Linux OS. That's what it means. Control write and quit WQ. Now let us try to start our service. Created the symbolic link. So service is now created, but service is not started. Service is now started. Now we can test the system control. Type service, show me all the services that are running, and you see Linux tested our service is also running. The status is activating and auto restart. Let me test it again to see whether it is running or not. It is actually running now. You can also go ahead and do something like a system control status lns test lns text is the service, right? Lns test. So service is there, and code is dump signal blah blah blah. Process is actually started in this DLL is started by the .NET, and currently it should be running. We know that when we are directly trying to run this, it was running at 5000. So we know for a fact that it is running at 5000. And let me go ahead here, not here, here, and let me do a control C. And okay, so service is started. Let us do the net stat and check all the listening ports or all ports, TCP, UDP, port, process and name. Now I could see 5000, 5001 is running by .NET, which is running, that is perfect. And okay, so we know that 5000, 5001 is running. And let me do one more thing. It's not going to work anyhow. I can open up this 5001 to the external service, open the port so that we will be able to reach from outside. But no, that's not what we are going to do. Now the .NET application is .NET 6 application is running at all times. To check that, curl get http localhost 5000 weather forecast. If it doesn't work, we need to add that X symbol here, hyphen capital X. Okay, so it's working. So our application is working without any issues, and .NET service is also running. Now there are two things that we can do. Anyhow, our service is working. We can go ahead and just open the port. The moment we open the port externally, it will be working, and our application will always be accessible. That's the end of it. But no, sometimes we need to do rewrite the URLs, do reverse proxy and incoming request. We need to monitor them. We need to filter the incoming request. Based upon the incoming request, we might need to redirect it to a different location, and so many things are there. Either you can control them directly inside your directly inside your .NET application, or you can do it through the web server. I prefer doing it via the web server. I'm going to do a very simple one. This is not going to be something major, very, very simple one. Let's go to the home, cd, etc. and Nginx. Nginx.conf. So the Nginx configuration, you could see that server is listening at 80, and what I'm going to do, the root value is here, right? Let me remove the root value, and usually before we do anything, you need to do one more value. I have already made this. I created a copy of this as copy original. Just in case something is messed up, I will retrieve it back from the original. So ensure that you are doing the same. And I will remove this line dd. There is no root. And what I will do, I will directly say, I will do insert, and I will give the location. Inside the location, I'm going to say only one command, proxy pass is equal to http localhost 5000. So whenever someone is trying to reach 80, directly return it to proxy pass by 5000. That's what I'm saying here. Let me write and quit, and system control restart Nginx. Okay, it looks like there is a problem with Nginx. Let's see, journal control xcu Nginx.service. What is the problem? The problem what happened is, here in the inside this each line should end with a colon. We did not give that colon here. That's why the problem was happening. And now that we give the line, we can go ahead and escape colon wq, write and quit. And now let us restart Nginx, and again it failed. Let me check the service error. Unknown directive proxy pass. It's not able to understand what is proxy pass. Okay, so I roughly have an idea why this is happening. The proxy pass should not have equal. It should be direct. So vim Nginx, and let's remove the equal. So insert. Okay, let's try this now. Write and quit, and system control restart Nginx. Now this is done. Now our Nginx is started. Let's try from here. The page you are looking for is temporarily unavailable. Good. We at least have made some progress. Let us remove the remaining setups. Actually, this is not the way how in production we will be doing error page, location, everything else is removed. All I have is only the listening port, and then server name is not there, location is proxy pass, and I think this is fine at present, and nothing else is there. So let us do wq and restart Nginx. Is it restarted? Yes. And let's go back, do control F5, bad gateway. Usually we get this error whenever we have one server not working. So let us confirm the other thing. We know that we created curl -x get http localhost. The location is 5000 /weather forecaster. So this is working. So what we need to do, we need to now go to Nginx logs. Where is the Nginx logs? It will be present in, let's go to the home page list. The logs will be present in etc, cd etc, sorry, not etc, cd var, and var has, you see the log is here, cd log, and inside this we have Nginx, cd Nginx, and here we have access log and error log. Let me try the access log. It looks like we tried to reach this weather forecast here, and 502 error is there. So we return 502 error when we try to reach this. Now let us try to read the error log. What is the error? Connect to 5000 permission failed while connecting to upstream. So basically our one server, the internally running 5000 is working, and from externally. So that's the reason why when we reach this location, the permission is denied for 5000. That's why we are not able to reach this. This doesn't mean that we need to open 5000, because opening 5000 doesn't matter. Reason is, 5000 port is internally already open. Let me show that to you. Let's start. Show me all the listening port, NTUP, and you see 5000 is already running in .NET and internally it is listening. So that's no problem with 5000. And we should not be opening 5000 externally unless otherwise we are going to reach this location. Like we are hosting multiple websites in Nginx, we will be opening different ports. So based upon the port that we are trying to reach, Nginx will try to then reverse proxy and return it to another location. But the problem here is not with Nginx, or the problem is not with the permission denied issue. It's completely different. It's the SC policy that I explained in the beginning. The SC Linux policy is the one that modifies this. I will show how to do this one and then we will see. So first let us clear the screen, and like I said, the C Linux or security enhanced Linux, you can manage and list all the ports. First let us do C manage. What are the commands available? There are so many commands available, and IP key description is there. H is for help, right? So we will do C Linux help. So C manage help, and key is port, right? List everything. So these are the ports that are enabled or controlled by C manager. So do we have this 5000 somewhere? We don't see that the 5000 is used anywhere. No, we need it in the HTTPD port, and we don't see HTTPD anywhere. So we are trying to reach it via HTTP, and that HTTP port is not enabled anywhere. Okay, I have cleared it. C manage port list, and then like I said before, we are going to do a grep, which means filter it with HTTP underscore port underscore T. You could see that under HTTP port, we have opened 80, 81, 443 and all the other things, but 5000 is not yet added to the HTTP port, which means that even for applications that are running internally inside the Linux, the connections are not allowed. So we need to open 5000 to HTTP port, only then it will work. So C manage port, add HTTP port T, and I believe P 5000. Port option is needed for add. So port option is needed, which means what is the port option? We already gave port option. Okay, it is TCP. Okay, 5000 TCP is already defined. So C manage, since 5000 is already in use, port, instead of adding we will do modify. A for add, M for modify. Modify HTTP port underscore T and TCP 5000. This should modify it, and C manage port list. C manage port list and grep with C manage port list and get me only HTTP underscore port underscore T, and now we have 5000 added. So now our application should allow, right? Let us SC Linux 5000 gateway, control F5. And last step, set security enhanced Linux bool, and we need to say whether HTTPD can connect over network or not. And HTTPD can network connect. You know what I did? I'm not typing it. I just typed HTT and pressed tab, and can network connect. Can network connect, value is 1. So let's try again. Where is our bad gateway? There you go. So this is it, and let's go back and clear the screen, and let's do the journal here. Error log. There is no more error, and we will do access log. So basically we try to reach from 200. If you could see here, we tried to reach from a specific 150, which is my Windows host, and the solution was successful 200. So now let me go back here. There is one interesting thing. We did not open 5000 port anywhere outside, but what we did, we just opened the SC Linux to internally communicate, and using reverse proxy, whenever I reach this particular server, and this server could be anything, like if you are having a domain in GoDaddy or somewhere else, you will modify this IP address to direct to your domain to direct to the IP address, like www.yourwebsite.com will be directing to here, and then internally when you call, you will be directed to the website that is hosted. Now let's try math. Sum x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 20, so it should be 25, and if I turn this as multiply, it should be 100. So our web application, which is hosted in Nginx in Linux, is working. So what we did, we created a system service, and service is always running. Now I am going to show you something more interesting. Let me go here. Let's go solve this command prompt. So now this will show you the reason why we are running this. I closed it. Okay, I closed my connection. I'm going to close this connection as well. So basically now I closed both my WinSCP and I also closed my other connection through the putty. Now here I will do exit. Now you could see that I exit the interface. Basically this is the machine is running, but it is not connected, which means that internally the .NET 1 whichever I am running should be running as a backend service. Let's try once again. It is still working, and weather forecast also is still working, which means in your setup in a cloud server or wherever you want, until your application, the machine itself is running, it doesn't have to be logged in. If a machine is running, in the backend server and the web server and the services whichever is running will be able to serve you the files. That's what is happening here. So that's it. This covers everything about building a .NET application and hosting it. There is one more additional information that I would like to share. I will open up putty again, because there might be a question why we created all those sites enabled and the sites available. I thought of showing it in that direction, but I didn't go there, but I will give a hint here. Root mouse at 1, 2, 3. Okay. Here inside forgot, it should be inside etc. Nginx list. In the sites available, we can create different configuration files, which will then be directly instead of using this config, we will be doing it in the site enabled, sites available and site enabled. In that case, you need to call directly like this, like 5000. If you are planning to host multiple websites, then you will be doing this. Not only this, you can also do if you don't want this one, I will open the Nginx.conf. You could see that interesting thing here is server name underscore. Instead of server name underscore, you will put www.yourwebsite.com or directly yourwebsite.com. So when there are different configuration files with the different server names, through which server name the request is made based upon the domain name, it can still directly reverse proxy it to the specific proxy address. So you can run 10 websites internally, and you can specify different server names based upon the URL which server name is used. Your application will then direct it to the specific proxy address. But the catch here is you need to use the server name which is mandatory, because if server name is not present, then it will not be able to know which proxy it should be directing it to. So that's the case. If you want to reach your server without using a domain name, then you need to specify the IP addresses there. So this is I think we will save it for another video, but as of now that's it. I will open the presentation that we did in the beginning, and we will quickly go through it. So we built a .NET. We built a .NET web app, then we transferred the files through WinSCP. There we installed Nginx, and then we installed a .NET, and we opened the ports, handled the firewall. So basically firewall is only for the 80 port. We opened the firewall. Permissions, we opened the permissions through SC Linux, and even in the SC Linux we set the bool, SC set bool for port HTTP can connect network, HTTP can network connect, and then in the ports we added in the SC Linux itself, and then we restarted the service. That's it. It's quite straightforward if you actually understood what's going on behind the screen. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this will add some value, and we will see in another video. Thank you again.